As much as I would like to say I was the first, I would definitely say it took all people from different walks, different support areas, whether it be just mentorship, my husband just being like, go for it, and that supportive quiet. If you know my husband, he's just really good at that. I mean, I definitely could not have done it without him. And then my other co founder, people who gave. And I think there is something scary about being first or challenging a system that's been done a certain way, whether it was in Uganda or here in Oklahoma. There's always someone who's going to fall if it doesn't succeed. And I will be honest that inhibited some of that gumption to fight as hard as I should have in the beginning.
Okay.
But also, you do wanna walk in wisdom in
Right.
something that's new. And so starting Project Orphans and developing something internationally and then seeing a gap close to home in my backyard, and then, like, you're like, "Am I really the only person who saw this gap? Like, is this really am I why am I doing this?"
Right.
This we've been in existence forever. Is it truly a gap? And that question, even people will say, "Well, really? There's not why isn't there the answer for this? Or why aren't we doing it this way?" And I truly believe sometimes we just don't know until you're in it.
Yeah.
And even me, I can get pigeonholed in what I'm doing and maybe not change the systems that still are broken because it is exhausting. And
It's so
that's sad that it's
yeah.
so hard to do the right thing for kids in our country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there because, I think when you're in the midst of the gap, like you said, the default, you get so overwhelmed by what you're doing, what you're creating, what you're trying to change, and you don't even realize that so many people have no concept of what is happening in our world, right? One of the biggest things that I think has been an awareness for me is just that. Nobody understands what it means to be a child in foster care in the United States of America, the freest country in the world. Not, right? And how
Definitely not the freest for kids with the justice that supports them,
yes,
which mind blowing.
mind blowing, right? Absolutely.
And we say we are doing so much good.
Right.
Statistics and data would show that, but what data are we truly presenting?
Right.
Um, and child
And I would even question that the statistics and data are proving that,
100%.
right?
And I mean, you look at the incarceration, you look at kids who even I love the new Fostering Futures Act that came forward because it is calling on data and that transparency. However, what the state actually gives and provides or what is provided to them is going to dictate how those ETV funds, how these systems are provided, and those funds. I mean, I think it said only like a third, not even a third, is accessing, funds for kids to go to foster care, funds for, we have major gaps. And someone who's not just creating legislation truly needs to be open and honest, and that needs to be a roundtable throughout our states.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'll never forget Chief Jackson. He's a police chief here in Tulsa or in Jinx. And we work really closely with him. And he stated, he goes, on top of the door frame of every DHS office should not be reunification as goal. It should be protecting the child is the goal. And so much is driven by policy and procedure by a new director of child welfare or a president or a political leader that we just change, these metrics that we want to hit. We want to see all these kids not go homeless or we want to see all these kids get ETV. But at the end of the day, the goal should be to protect the child.
Right.
And we
In
live
their unique way.
yeah, in a very unique way. That's individualized because how you are cared for and how I am cared for and how you needed to be taught and how I needed to be taught and how I learn and how you learn in the medical, it's individualized. And we're trying to create a system around data instead of individuals and knowing how to connect. And so, anyways, that we could go on and on and on.
We
But
could. I was interviewing another nonprofit director, and he does a lot of work in the sex trafficking industry. And he said something very powerful. He said, "We will never out legislate humanness."
Never.
And that's the problem is that we keep thinking a law or a policy is going to change everything when we get to actually ask ourselves, but how are two individuals in a normal, non-traumatic, non life altering way ever going to be doing things the same? I think about, you can probably say the same thing, but I think about my 6 children.
Mm.
None of them have done anything the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, one of the questions that I think arises is what or what were you given? Because I think, like you said, we talk about community. So that could have been through words in a mentorship. That could have been, a download from God. That could have been support from your husband. Whatever it is, what were you given that actually allowed you and your best friend to go overseas? Because I think it would have been almost easier. I mean, and I could be dead wrong because I've never worked overseas, but I think it would have been almost easier to address what was right in your backyard first.
Mhm.
But you went to a different country with really no rights as a citizen, maybe even no understanding of their policy and their government,
Mhm.
and started building something that was bigger than you.
Yeah. Well, I was young and naive because I just thought America's so blessed. We're the best. There's no way, you know. And I am going to say, and I'm going to position this, and people may or may not agree with me. We have tons of resources here. If you want to make it here, you can make it here. I truly believe that. There is a place in America where self-determination is key. If you are hungry, there will be someone who feeds you. There will be a food bank in your area to help you. There will be a church, a good Samaritan. There is someone in America, mental health. I don't think we know how to intertwine it all together sometimes. Sometimes I think a lot of the times I have no idea that this already exists,
Yes.
right? To help this child who I'm serving at Tulsa Girls Home.
Right.
Or as a foster parent, I don't know that this agency exists and could have supported me in 5 years of legal justice supporting my kid who was abused in the system or mental needs that I had no idea. I don't think caseworkers all know. Um, and that comes back to just a faulty transparency, meeting people where they're at. But I do believe in America, if you want to succeed, if you want to get a loan to go to college, you can do it. If you want to work, and do I think there's mental health? Yes. But again, self determination is big. And I think that when I say all that, I'm going to caveat that there is illness and mental health that does inhibit, and we have to protect those vulnerable populations in a certain way. And our expectations cannot be that someone who has intellectual disability knows how to apply or even seek those resources. So they aren't homeless and so there I say that with a caveat of, do I think we are funding certain things and not doing it responsibly? Absolutely, as a state. Yes. As a nation, we are. But I guess that can come back down to corruption and the system and
Right.
all the things, right?
And lack of knowledge.
And lack of knowledge. Now, as far as Uganda and internationally that when we worked, it is very different in there. There aren't those resources. And so I never wanted to come in and be like, hey, let me save everyone. I just wanted to be a resource hub and a resource base to letting people have the same access. And it's amazing the willpower. I'm going to say sometimes it's hard to come back home because it's like, this should be given to me or this should be. I teach our girls at Tulsa Girls Home, nothing should be given to you. We are fortunate enough that we have a system, that there are resources to support you. It is unfortunate that you are in the situation you are in. And that was wrong. And I am sorry. And we're going to work through that. But your future does not have to be dictated on the past because there are pathways for you to succeed and to find hope no matter what. Whereas I can't say that that is true in third world countries or in Africa. And so and I'm going to be honest too, there are people in Africa and Uganda and same with my kids and they get in this rut, of I want this. And so that's why the human we will always have people who are suffering. We will always have people who, choose not to take advantage of the resources that they've been given. But then that's when we can't hold on to that. we have to be okay saying we did our best. And that's a really big part of if you are getting into fostering or adopting or human services or serving in general. You are no one's savior. You are a
Um,
hand up. You're there to walk with them. You can be a courage for them, a sense of hope for them, a pathway for them. But at the end of the day, they are responsible to make those decisions. And some people learn the hard way.
yeah,
And we can't take that personally. And then we can't say, oh, well, we're doing it wrong, or, our method stinks,
right.
or this law was wrong. We have to understand we are dealing with humans. And there is that component as well. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe I ruffled some feathers with that. And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. But I also think that piece of advice will help anyone in this industry not find burnout.
Right.
Because if you truly are going to take on the role as savior and that child or that adult or that person does not stop the addiction or stop that cycle or decides to get pregnant and bring their child into the system, like you are going to be burnt out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so what we measure success in has to be defined differently. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not the win. Sometimes it's just walking with them through the hard journey and being there, not to save them, but to point them to the next step, because I truly believe they can find that. And I believe kids can find that. Now, do I think a little differently with children? Absolutely. Under 18, we need to be advocating all armor on for these kids. And I'm going to even say with those kids who are intellectually disabled, accused lower than 70, they fall through this like system night and day all the time. And we see them as addicts, as homeless, as those who are lazy, and that is just not the case. They have no way of even being able to access resources or even understand it. And so they didn't get those diagnoses. They
Uh-huh.
didn't get, I would love to see you talk about reform. If you were in foster care at 18 and you didn't get that intellectual diagnosis, I don't think you should not be discluded from SSDI, because how many caseworkers fail our kids?
Absolutely.
And how many people don't know? And how many psychiatrists? You could take one kid to the next kid, and it's all skewed.
Right.
I just think that would be huge
Right.
because someone hopefully is bound to meet that adult who aged out of foster care who recognizes, oh my gosh, this person really doesn't even know how to fill out application
Right.
and they need support.
I have a really powerful story when it comes to what you're just saying. So I want to share it because I think this is a perfect example because this isn't just a one and done. This actually happens relentlessly. And people are like, well, there's all these programs and nonprofits in place. But if someone has never been given an opportunity to find that, and if they're, like you said, intellectually disabled on top of it, they don't even understand the basic concepts. 13 years ago, we received a placement and she was failure to thrive. That's how she was placed with us, failure to thrive. And through a lot of avocation and through, I'm just going to shorten the story up as much as I can, we actually came to find out that she was missing the top part of chromosome 3. So rare that they didn't even have a name for the disorder yet. There was less than 15 people in the world diagnosed with this disorder. And I had an amazing medical team and I had proven myself. So when I walked in, I was like, nope, we got to figure this out. And they would listen, right? Which is huge right there. So many people don't fight for these kids. They do not fight for these kids. But what was turned around and what came from this is that we actually, by the time she left my home and was adopted, there was 17 because we found out her mom and grandma both had the same thing. Right? Like that is avocation. That is the knowledge base. And then you are able to see why didn't mom it was able to get the services she needed? Why wasn't she able to graduate from school? Why wasn't she able to take care for her children? And then why was grandma in that same place? And how they all had failure to thrive as newborns. And no one was putting those clues together. Why do we have 3 female generations with failure to thrive and no one's asking questions? So it's such an important, hugely important part of the foster care system. Because if they're coming into foster care, the first question we have to ask ourselves is not what's wrong with you, but what has happened? And when I say what has happened to you, it's not just what has happened to you, but what is those generational things, those generational clues we haven't even asked for. So I think that's such a powerful point that you bring that up. And if we start asking those questions earlier in care and that avocation becomes, which is really what Tulsa Girls Home is representing. And it's you're representing the trauma informed care. You're in a family situation because there's questions like, why are we not teaching these children how to be a part of a family? Everyone's like, well, they're in family homes. That means nothing. That means nothing. So, as humans, we are taught from early on what it means to be a part of a family dynamic. We find our place, we find our responsibilities, our purpose, all those things. And these kiddos have been moved so many times because when we're talking about later in high school life, this is when Tulsa Girls Home brings these girls in. They have been moved more times than you guys can imagine, more times. And so they have never been taught a basic family dynamic. And then yet we expect them to graduate, turn 18, and get on with their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the reasoning you chose the age group and the dynamic or blueprint for Tulsa Girls Home? What was that experience that brought you into that?
So I think my experience was kind of twofold because it was kind of going parallel at the same time. So my husband and I were fostering and very much had the mentality of no grown kids, they can hurt our kids. And like babies are easier, younger kids are easier. And that's just honest truth. I'm very much going to be honest with that. And then through a series of events, we met our daughter Miracle, who approached us and said, "Hey, I would like you to adopt." Like the fact it hit me so hard that a child is having to ask me to take her home and give her family. And that rocked me. And so my husband's like, "No." And I'm like, let's just think about it. I'm gonna like social media stalk the girl. Like I can figure this out, you know. And anyways, so there was that happening on that side, and that's a whole story of its own. And then on the other side, I was contracting as a director of a domestic violence and human sex trafficking shelter. And these women were girls mostly who had aged out of the foster care system. And I'm like, what? And I'm not even gonna lie, these women were scary. They were grown women having 15, 14, 13-year-old behaviors and feelings in adult women bodies. And I will never forget this one lady at the shelter who could not remember how to do, like, those turn locker combinations.
Right. Yeah.
And the staff was getting annoyed. Like, we've taught her so many times, and she's just like yelling at us and like da 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 and screaming, like, it's our fault that, the locker wasn't working and all this stuff. I was like, has anyone thought to ask her, does she know how to do this? Like, maybe, and you know what? She didn't. But her whole system in the foster care system was fake it till you make it. You got to act like you can do this. You got to act like you know how to make your bed. You got to act like, because if you show any type of vulnerability, that will be picked apart and preyed upon, or you will not be chosen because you weren't
Mm,
smart,
you
because you
weren't
didn't know how to do this.
chosen.
Yep. And I was like, this is wild. So, Tulsa Boys Home in our state has done a very good reputation, 105 years. And Tulsa Girls Home didn't exist. And then I went to group homes in our state, and no way would I have put my adoptive daughter Miracle or my unadopted daughter, biological child. No way would I put anyone in these situations, especially when they wanted differently.
Mm.
And so that was really the model of Tulsa Girls Home. And at that time, there's a director, Dr. Jeb Shropshire, who really saw this model of a therapeutic foster care style family-esque group home and believed that if we had more of these,
Yeah.
we wouldn't need such high level OJA or destructive behaviors. And I don't know, maybe people laughed at me. I'm sure they did. There is that rumor. But I just believed, and I'll send it to you, but there is a TED talk, and it talks about like when most children want to do good.
Yeah. They
And
do.
I truly believed most girls, teenage girls, wanted to do good.
They
They just
wanted to be what you just said earlier, chosen.
Mhm.
They want to be loved. It's a basic core human need that we need to feel wanted and loved. And, we can go back to the studies and they talk about, a child that's not held, a child that's not talked to will actually die, right? But that
so
doesn't
true.
change. That doesn't just happen in newborn. It happens throughout our whole lives. We need connection and we need to know we are enough just as we are. So I think that there's so much power there. But when you talk about how the director understood, I think this is the foundation of the change. I truly do believe this. And I talk about it a lot, but I want your opinion because when we talk about as a culture, and I always say it, whether I'm on a podcast or I'm talking out as a solo cast, is that we bitch about everything that's wrong in this culture, in this society, how our prison systems are overrun, and our mental health systems, and oh my gosh, when are they going to stop the homeless living on our streets and drug and alcohol and all the things? We bitch, 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 bitch. But what we have never taken the time to stop and ask is why? Why is it growing? Why is it continuing to get worse? Why do we see more? And my belief, my personal belief, is because we're still not addressing the why of where the children, the humans, the adults come from. And that's the foster care system. Because if you look statistically, if you're a math person, you want to talk about policy, whatever it is, if you're statistics, there is not a statistic out there that does not say over half or a great percentage of every one of those systems, the person spent some time in foster care in their life. Every one of those systems, sex trafficking, homelessness, mental health, prison systems, they're all
Almost there.
there's all a huge percentage that they spent some time in foster care. So when I look at that from a numbers perspective, because that's what I do, why the heck are we not relooking at the foster care system first?
Because then we would probably need to go into a state of emergency
That's goosebumps. A state of emergency. Think about that.
for our
Because
kids in our nation.
in our nation,
Can you imagine, like, if I was in any type of political office, it's the first thing I would sound the alarm on, and
absolutely.
I would be so proud to do it
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because that is our future,
It is.
and it's not about keeping kids out of this system.
No,
It's just not.
it's
Because
not.
the thing is you can't do that because you never address the issue that happened beforehand with that
Yep.
generation.
Yep.
We can expect to take in less. Abuse is not going down.
No. Neglect is not going down.
You can dump as much resources, like, at the end of the day, until we address the fact that, like, we've done it wrong in the system, until we can address that we've done it wrong, and that's okay. Like, let's just call it what it is. We've failed at this part of our
Yeah.
nation.
We screwed up.
We screwed up, and we're gonna call it a state of emergency until we figure it out
Yes.
and get everyone in a room, and whether it be legislation or
Congress.
actually holding policy to be policy,
Yeah.
making sure our contracted lawyers are actually seeing their kids and doing their job, making sure child welfare is actually doing their visits and not being overrun by 20 kids or 30 kids. Like, let's do our job.
Right?
And let's just say we need to throw money at it. Can you imagine the money that could be saved? Because that thing
Ima
comes down to money.
Yeah.
Everything is money.
Everything.
I thought about this too. I'm like, well, are we trying to solve it? Maybe we're not.
I don't think we are.
Maybe we aren't because it actually feeds into so many things that we make money from and our government makes money.
Absolutely.
And why would we want to solve something that we get to control? We get to control people's Medicaid. We get to control people's health. We get to control people. We get it. I mean, power and control. Do we really? All these nonprofits, can you imagine if they had to go away?
Right? Right?
Like, what about how many people would lose their jobs if we actually serve kids? And it will take, I think, 18 to 25, 30 years to see a change
Absolutely.
because it's going to have to happen. Like, let's just say you start that year one, when kids are in care at 20, whatever, and you give the 18 years and show new processes and systems and funding resources and types. And again, anyways, I
You
don't know.
retrain because what we have to do is we have to retrain an entire country. And I say that with a grain of salt because what I want people to hear me say is that, I think like the average child enters care at age 8, which is a really weird statistic for me, but that's what the statistics say. And again, what Brittany said is you're only getting what you're being given. But let's just say they enter at 8 and they age out. You're spending 10 years in care. And in that 10 years, there's an average of 6 placement changes. 6. So that right there is a huge red flag. Why? So we have to retrain what it means to be a foster parent. And we're already in such a state of emergency when it comes to homes that we have placements, let alone homes that are actually going to help these children grow, heal, and change that systematic, that cyclical behavior that is a part of their beliefs. We can go back and talk about your amygdala is formed before the age of 7. So these kids come into care at 8, all of their belief system is already set in stone. Their beliefs are their truth. So fending for themselves, doing it themselves, like you said, not being seen, be quiet, don't talk, don't tell. All those beliefs are already in place.
Yeah. And dismantling, I mean, I tell our team all the time, you cannot expect to dismantle something that has been embedded. And for us, it's 14, 15, 16 years. While also just like having a childhood. Like, let's go have fun and go to prom, you know? And normalcy, you
Right.
know?
Normalcy
It
is
would be.
yeah,
It would be dismantling it all, and I even talk about, like, if I was the director of DHS in our state, like, what would I do? Transparency would be key. There's no way I would not know who's running my group homes in
yeah,
my state. We would be
absolutely.
round tabling at least once, not once a month, at least, where my eyes are hearing the concerns directly, because, like, the amount of telephone that is played in DHS is ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm tired of the fight to the point I'm like, okay, well, do I just do what I do well and leave TGH where it's at? Like, I can do TGH well forever. And I wrestle with that
Yeah.
because it's a lot to go up against a system. I mean, I opened one home
Yeah.
and I'm being celebrated for what? Courage?
Right. Good
It's
question.
so wrong.
Right. I
I
love
should,
that. I love that you actually say that because I think that you are right. It's like, I did something courageous. I'm making a difference. Now you're next. But that's not making change.
it's not. It's not. And I think that's what is exhausting. Like, I don't want to go into the political world and change the law and go do that and hunker at dinners. I'm not made for that. Like, I know people think that's stuff I love to do. I don't. Like, if I love these girls and going to swim meets and going to prom and like seeing them succeed, I love that. And am I saying I wouldn't do a certain move to help change systemically? Absolutely, because they're worth that. But it shouldn't be hard to change things that okay, and it may not be simple. And that's what I always say. It may not be a simple answer. But when are we gonna say it's effed up?
Absolutely.
And let's just start. Let's just start by being pissed at DHS or DHS being pissed at the government or, whatever. Let's just get it all on the table. Everyone's pissed at everyone. And now let's say, what are we going to do to work together?
Right. Boy, howdy, would that take some humanness though, right?
Can you
Which we don't
imagine
want to,
adults
we really
being
don't
adults?
want to address. It's funny that you talk about that because there's two things that come up. When I was in Oklahoma visiting your guys' home, your home, you sent me to another organization. And I remember looking at the director and saying, DHS's biggest mistake was putting me in a spot where I had to step into something I had never done. So I was already a foster parent and get intervener status for a child. I had to say, this child is worth more than my comfort. That was their biggest mistake because after that, I realized how powerful, and I say that with a grain of salt because I don't think I'm a powerful person, but how powerful my voice is. How
Mhm.
powerful taking one step that feels really uncomfortable is because that child is worth it. It doesn't matter who laughs at you, like you said. It doesn't matter who doesn't agree with you. Who doesn't matter who says you're never going to make it because the children that you're servicing are your fuel. And I'm going to challenge you though, Brittany, because one of the things that came up when you were saying that is it's like I've only created one home. But what you have done is what I said in the beginning is you've been first. Like for me to be able to sit here and watch how you've created Tulsa Girls Home is fuel to do it in my state. And then what if I'm the fuel for somebody else to do it in another state? That's how change happens. Change happens one baby step at a time, whether it's frustrating as hell or not. it's still happening. And when we begin to create the questions and the awareness and the knowledge, like these conversations that are going to ruffle feathers. Okay, that's okay. Let's ruffle the feathers because somebody has to. Somebody has to start asking those really tough questions about what has always been because it's obviously not working. It's obviously not working. It does not take a brain surgeon to figure that out, right? So when I came to Tulsa Girls Home, I was a hard ask. I didn't really know you. Someone said, "You have got to know this woman." I started following you on social media, and then I just had the hard question, "Can I come see the home?" And you were like, "Absolutely. Let's figure this out." Let's talk a little bit about being in that space, right? Like just not only Tulsa Girls Home and what you're providing and what you've built, because you've built something. And I say your community, your directors, your board, your city, right? Because they support you guys. So when I say there has to be a vessel, and you are that vessel, Brittany. You're the vessel that is going to ask for something different. And so you guys have created something really beautiful at Tulsa Girls Home. And Chad and I and our oldest daughter got to experience that, which was such a gift. But talk a little bit about your dream and how it's already grown, but how it's continuing to grow and what that looks like.
Yeah. So I think with a dream, or let's just say anything that is placed on your heart to make you actually want to move and do something, because I don't know if I would call this my dream, but I would call it a deep seated conviction that I would wrestle not responding to
Okay. Right.
and acting in courage, because justice is probably the main fuel for me in this. But Tulsa Girls Home, I just wanted a space that a girl walked in, and I don't know which girl has ever not walked in since we've opened, and they not said, I get to live here.
Hmm.
This is for me. And then it's really great when their caseworker gets to say, oh, you're just spoiling him. I'm like, am I?
Hmm.
A home with good furniture, with a dog, and clothes that they get to buy for the first time and go and try on and make sure it fits their personality? Good food? Am I spoiling them?
Hmm.
Or is that just something that should be? And people don't really like it when I say that. One thing that will really make me mad is when you say I spoil my kids, because I don't. I just get them what
They deserve.
they deserve. What if a healthy mother and father could change? And you know what? I hope that ingrains in them to give their child that Christmas experience, that they get to go and make a memory and learn how to make a pie with their kid. You know, they go first day school shopping with their mom or their children. You know, those things create different pathways of what should be. And that comes with hard. Don't get me wrong, because then they got to be mad at, normally they're mad at me because their mom didn't do it or their dad didn't do it, or that now they're just, and so that's a whole other cycle. And then you say, like, what is the future? I mean, right now where the legislation changes often. And so I would love to purchase the lot next door. I have one girl right now who, you know, could possibly, they can't stay at TGH forever. So I need a foster care home that's close because we're family.
Hmm.
And then I need, I have my townhomes for my girls who are 18 and 21, but I don't have a home for a girl who has an IQ below 70 and can't live alone and
Yeah.
shouldn't live alone, but still doesn't need to be in a lockdown facility until she's 100.
Right.
She's so much more valuable to our community. And so, yeah, my system is totally not normal because it's saying, hey, we're actually going to be family and help you and not let you just fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
Because we started out as a small family style therapeutic group home. And now we realize our girls age out and they need family still. And then some aren't allowed to stay, but they don't want to leave and get abused in the system or play house and have to gain trust again.
Right.
And so that would be my dream, is to take care of the people that I've told I will take care of well.
Right.
And isn't that sad?
That's sad.
Yeah.
Because for most of these kids, I think, what the listeners have to understand is that for the first time in their entire life, they're actually succeeding. And I say succeeding with a grain of salt, but like they're going to school and they're passing their classes. They're making up credits that they were never been required to make up or even told that there's a different way. They're being seen. Like you said, it's not that I am a burden. I am actually a blessing. I I get to be a part of this family. I get to do chores. I get to say that's not fair without being afraid of abuse, neglect, being told
Disqualification of
yeah,
family.
disqualification of family, right? It goes back to that whole family thing again that we don't want to even talk about, that we're not even teaching these children their worth. And so we wonder why the statistics turn out the way they do. So, Tulsa Girls Home is a 6-bed therapeutic girls' home, foster home, but you've brought in just something that's so beautiful and so much different, and that is family. And when Chad and I walked in, we felt it. They call you mom. They are so proud of their home, right? They're so proud of their home. And then you've uh, built community and resources, and you've built 4 duplexes that have had the ability to help kids transition out. So they're done, they're 18, they get to move in as they're going to college and really create more skills around budgeting and work and school and their own place. But then you talked about building this lot because not all of the kids that are going to come through a therapeutic group home. What people don't understand is a therapeutic group home, there has to be a level of need, which typically is some of the hardest kids. And I say hardest with a grain of salt, hardest kids in the system. And so this group home, this foster home where kiddos can move because legislation says you can only stay in a group home maximum 18 months, 12 consecutive months in one group home. So we're going to move you again, my love. We're going to move you again because you're not worthy of staying.
Can we just change it now and make me happy?
Let's just do it. Let's just change it right now.
I mean, and I'm not saying that, I get why it was there. When you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you don't need to be in a like in a group home forever. Truly, it should be, and those kids were just going from group home to group home to group home, and I get why it was
Great.
enforced or created. I don't think we thought about teenagers. I don't think we thought about the 15-year-old or 16-year-old you get who does like finally heals and finds safety and permanency, and then you want to take out at 17 and a half because time's up and put them in shelter. We have not thought about that. And it's a simple solution. Like, let's not even, we got it wrong.
We got
We
it
got
wrong.
it wrong. It's okay. We're going to go make an amendment and fix it for our teenagers. Like, let's get a win for the ones who are thinking of the older ones because we think about the little ones. So, like, let's just have a reasonable talk.
Have a reasonable talk and think about the humanness of the fact that some of these kids have been placed 32 times in their life, right? Like and moving them is literally going to undo everything that we just did.
TGH who are like, I'm not ready to leave. I'm not ready to leave. And then one day they say, Miss Brittany, I want you to find me a family.
Oh,
And you know what? That's amazing. I'm
yeah.
going to work my butt off to find that family.
Yes.
I'm not going to keep them in the group home, but
No.
there are group homes who will do that, or caseworkers who are like, they're doing well and I'm not going to do my job. So somehow we have to keep that transparency and the child's voice
It's
in their
imperative.
treatment.
Yeah.
That is, the treatment plan has to have the child's voice. If we actually, you want to solve all problems, if you listen to the kid. Now we do a lot of case studies and we do a lot of surveys and we do a lot of things. And you know what? Something that came out of this was group homes are bad.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be real. Well, they are. They were. I mean, they still are. I
Yeah.
don't think Tulsa Girls Home is one of them, but there are more probably that have done it the same old same way, just like DHS or just like other foster care homes who aren't well, and no one held them accountable. They have non-compliances out the wazoo, referrals left and right. We don't shut them down. Why? Because we wouldn't have any place to put them. That should not be the reason why we
Right.
don't close that group home.
Right. No, it's true. Listening to our kids' voice would be like, wow, what a concept, right? Of
What
what they need. Because when they get to the teenage years, we keep telling them what they're supposed to do. But if we never ask them what they need, how do they know what they need after care? It goes
Well,
back to the same thing.
self-determination is huge. Like at that point with a 15, 16, 17-year-old, like I really should not be molding what they want in their goals.
No.
I can help provide feedback like a mom would, but at the end of the day, like I got to listen
Hmm.
because that's probably the pathway they're going to take. Whether they say, I want to stay at a townhome or I'm going back to an abusive situation. Okay, well, if they're going back to mom and dad or whoever that might be, I'm going to set them up with a safety plan, with some resources out there, create a community. I'm going to listen and not just force my way because one day that child's going to be like, peace out.
Hmm.
I'm going back. And then I have not equipped them to succeed the best they can in a self-determined way. our way is not the right way. We
Right,
have to listen to the kid. And
right.
then we create a pathway that's safe
All
for
of
them
a sudden,
to
things
make
start to change. Imagine that.
yeah.
Oh, my friend. Again, I've told you this a couple times already, but what a blessing it is to know you and to be a part of your beautiful gift to this world because I do feel like I was meant to know you because I know that your your voice and your fire is a fuel for me and our dream here. And like you say, dream lightly, but I do believe it's a dream. It's, we're born on purpose for a purpose. I believe that in my heart. It may never make sense, but it is a dream because it's placed on our hearts for a reason. So, how can anyone listening help support Tulsa Girls Home, your dream, your mission, whatever you want to look at it, the girls as a whole, the community that you're building there in that space?
So I would just say, whether you are listening in your legislation or you have the powers of be, do something, call me. I will happily talk to anyone, especially when it comes to these things. I think we all have a role, whether it be financially, whether it be through advocacy, whether it be, whatever that is, we all have a role to play.
Yeah.
And, I know you're starting your dream off. And what I'm going to say is, we need more of you.
Mm.
And so my dream, if you wanna help me, help Corey. I'm not joking though, you laugh,
Yeah.
but, we need more of that.
Yeah, we do.
Our system has not been created to where we do that for each other.
No, you're right.
And so, yes, we have Tulsa Girls Home, the wish list, you can donate, you can help us buy the land, you can do that, but also help Corey do that. And you know what? Help others do it too.
Right,
Bring people to say, "Hey, I know this person in Tulsa." They'll help you figure out how to do it.
right.
And then don't be afraid to be emotional for kids in foster care.
Absolutely. And emotional, it can look at so many different things, but I think, one of the easiest things we can do is just start talking about it because you never know who you're going to meet. And this is the perfect example is meeting Brittany because I spoke about it at one thing and someone said, you have to know this woman. And then someone else said, you have to know this woman. And speaking about it at that one event got a mentor in a different state started. It's just talking about it, having the conversations that maybe you don't have all the answers. You shouldn't have all the answers, but start talking about the need, you guys. Start talking about what's not working because then we can create. What if there is a legislator or a congressman or somebody listening to this in your community having a conversation at a dinner party because you heard this conversation? You never know. And that is the power of community. So, Brittany, thank you so much for one, just being you, giving me your time and energy over and over again. And being the one, being that first one that is able to see something different, to see that there is a possibility of change, of creating what was in my heart, but I couldn't see, right? I couldn't see that model anywhere else, but I knew it was in my heart. And then meeting you was like, no, this is possible. This is possible. Keep going.
Yep.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you again. Again, if this meant something to you, if it hit something, download it, share it. That is community. That is movement. That is that ripple effect. And until next time, we will see you again.